Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next of our What to Look For in the Night Sky series. This time we're talking about January 30th, 2023, so we will transition to February this week. We'll have Groundhog Day in there, so I don't know. I should have tried to make a celestial groundhog for you to find in the sky an asterism among the stars, but I did not do that. I didn't think of it until this moment when I realized that day would come this week. So we got a few things to talk about. Hopefully you've seen some night sky. I feel like I haven't seen the night sky in about a month. That's how cloudy every morning. Wake up to fog right to the ground here. And so we're going to turn colder ahead. And so where I live here, we might have a chance to clear out and cool down and get some crisp night skies in the week ahead. So let's hope for that. That's what we're looking for. Let's start with the idea of sunset. We've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again because I am nothing if not a broken record. Repeat these ideas. And that is to say, let's watch sunset. For me, this week, I gain more than 8 minutes of daylight in the evening. That is to say, at the end of the week, by the time we get to next Sunday evening compared to this Monday the 30th, by the time we get into February, I will have gained 8 minutes of daylight in the evening. Sunset will be 8 minutes later. If you make a graph of sunset time versus day of the year, it's going to look something like this. Never mind the phase, never mind where it's zero or whatnot. But it's going to look what I would call a sinusoid. It's not a sine shape, but it's a sine-like shape, or a cosine-like curve, which, never mind my drawing skills here. But what happens is, when we are here, that's midwinter for me, sunset-wise, and the 13 weeks surrounding the earliest, this is the earliest sunset. Let's just get rid of that axis, right? This is the earliest sunset, and this is the latest sunset. Maximum sunset daylight, minimum sunset daylight right here. And the 13 weeks around minimum is what I would call sunset winter. And the next 13 weeks, the fast parts of the sinusoids are spring and fall and spring, and the slow parts are winter and summer. And so we've had where the daylight hasn't been changing much in the evening daylight, but we have transitioned, folks. We've moved from here to here. We got by the time you're watching this, we've got more than the 13 weeks of earliest sunset behind us. So we're past winter, and we're transitioning to this fast part of the sinusoid where we're gaining evening daylight quickly. 8 minutes this week. Go out and watch it. See if you can detect just how fast we're gaining daylight in the evening. I've had colleagues tell me February's the dreariest of the months. There's nothing to look forward to in February. But, I love February. Full confession, I love all the months. But I love February because if you doubted that there was darkness, and I love darkness, full confession there too. I'm an astronomer, right? I love the dark skies. But if you doubted, there can be too much of a good thing, right? And if you ever doubted that the sun would return, if you thought that the darkness had overcome the light and we weren't going to rebound, February will disabuse you of that notion, because you start to see just how rapidly we're gaining daylight back, and it's almost breathtaking. So just start here at the beginning of this week and watch us gain daylight all month on the evening side, and pay attention to it every night. We are now in sunset spring, evening daylight spring, out of winter. Okay, go out on the first day of the week we're talking about here, the 30th. And what you'll see is this fabulous lineup of planets, and you'll be able to see it all week. Saturn is really hard. Saturn is down here close to the sun, so it's just gotten dark. You still got the glow of the sun on the horizon, and you see all of these planets strung across the evening sky. You might have to use binoculars to dig Saturn out of the glow of the sun. Saturn sets something like an hour, or a little more than an hour after the sun when the week starts, and it's just going to get to be harder and harder and harder as the week progresses. All these other things are going to be great. Venus is about 9 degrees. That's about 1 fist width at arm's length above Saturn. So that'll help you find Saturn, because Venus, being big and bright, Venus will be a little bit easier to see. So look for Venus in the glow of the sunset. Remember a couple of weeks ago, and I know you do, right? I know you've committed everything I've ever told you in these videos to memory, which is why it's so annoying that I keep repeating myself. But never mind that. A couple of weeks ago, Venus and Saturn were in conjunction. They were right next to each other, right on top of each other. Now Venus has pulled a full fist width away from Saturn down here. Find Venus, use your binoculars to scan downward and see if you can pull Saturn out of the glow of the sun. 31 degrees up here is Jupiter. Okay? So you got Jupiter here, and that's 3 fist widths on up this direction. Big, bright Jupiter. No missing it. These are the 2 brightest objects you're going to see here in the southwest sky after sunset like this. So find Jupiter and find Venus. Now, as the week progresses, by the time we get to the end of the week, we have 8 more minutes of 8 more minutes of sunlight in the evening. So we're watching the sunlight grow in the evening. Venus is closing down on Jupiter. That 31 degrees is going to be 24 or 25 degrees. So you really will have noticed the gap between Venus and Jupiter close. If you've got clear nights every night this week, by all means, go out, watch the sunset get later and later, and watch Venus close down on Jupiter. You know, if planet is a Greek word for wanderer, meaning that the planets wander against the background stars, by the end of this week, I hope you would have no doubt that this is true. You can see this wandering very clearly with Venus and Jupiter. Now, going from Venus to Jupiter, about a third of the way down from Jupiter to Venus is Neptune. So if you got a telescope and you want to try to pull Neptune out of there, great. Pause at Jupiter and say, okay, we're going to pause here at Jupiter, and we're going to go about 20 degrees, about 2 fist widths straight south, more or less straight south to Diptha, or Deneb Kaitos, tail of the whale there. It's a 2nd magnitude star in Cetus. Another 12 degrees down from there is a 4.3 magnitude star, pretty faint star, and for me, a really hard star. This is a fun star for me to try to find because it's so far south. If you live somewhere, this is the week for you, if you live somewhere south of 43 degrees north latitude where I live, you know, if you live at 25 degrees north latitude, you got a good week ahead, as we're going to talk about more coming up here. But for me, you know, Alpha Sculptoris is a fun star just to try to find. Sculptor is a southern constellation. It's not a constellation I see much of or know much of, and it's very faint. The sculptor's workbench, the sculptor's studio, is what this represents in our western northern hemisphere biased rendering of the constellations. And so that's a 4.3 magnitude as the alpha star in Sculptor, so you know it's a faint constellation. It's just filling space there in the sky. But now's a reasonable time to try to find that, because I can use Jupiter to drop down to Diptha and then drop on down another 12 degrees and look for Alpha Sculptoris in there to see if I can find this alpha star and say, yeah, another year has gone by and I've observed Sculptor. Okay, that's just something that I like to do because it's a challenge, right? And it is one of the constellations. I'd like to know all the constellations. There are southern constellations I don't know at all. But I feel like I should know them, right? And so I'm trying to learn these things and practice these things, just like you are. That's why you're watching this, just like you are to learn these things and practice watching the sky, and I'm still doing it. Look, folks, I've only been seriously observing the sky for 45 years. I can't possibly be expected to know all of it, right? I can't possibly be expected to know what's going on out here. Okay, enough of that. Let's move on. We're still talking about the night of the 30th right now, although most of this stuff, except for Saturn. Saturn gets harder each night of the week. Most of this stuff you can do any night of the week. So we're going to move on 64 degrees, more than twice the distance from Venus to Jupiter, right? You get up here to Mars. So there's big Mars shining up high in the sky and beautiful, and also big and bright and hard to miss, and you will have passed Uranus along the way. Uranus is a little bit closer to the midpoint. Neptune was about a third of the way down from Jupiter toward Venus. Uranus is more than a third of the way down toward Jupiter, closer to the midpoint, but still a little closer to Mars. Okay, so you got that 64 degrees up to Mars, and you've got the Pleiades, and you got the Hyades clusters right there. But on Monday night, on the 30th, you got the moon sitting right there, and I mean it's really close, right in there amongst that grouping of objects, the Pleiades, the Hyades, and Mars. The moon's between 2/3 and 3/4 full. And as the evening progresses, depending on where you are, of course, when you watch this, but for me, as the evening progresses, the moon is going to close the gap down on Mars. It is going to graze Mars for me sometime between 11 and midnight. It's going to be really close on the 30th. Between 11 and midnight on the night of the 30th, I'm going to see the moon just skim by Mars. It's going to make a beautiful pairing. Watch that. If you got a chance, if it's nice out where you are and you have clear skies and you can go outside and you can enjoy all this stuff we've been talking about and just watch the evening unfold. Watch the moon get closer and closer and closer to Mars as you go from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock to midnight to whatever for you. And it's going to be just a really beautiful, crazy. Now, if you live south of me, like we suggested earlier, big week for you in the southern United States and on down through Central America, then you've got the moon's actually going to occult Mars. You're going to be able to see the moon blot Mars out. And you might need binoculars. The moon's pretty bright, but you've got the correct side of the moon, the less bright side of the moon doing the occultation of Mars there. And so you got a chance to see Mars do this. Binoculars really going to help you to see Mars and the moon blot that out. So if you live, along the southern third of the United States or anywhere in Central America or beyond the United States in North America, anywhere along there, you've got a chance to see this all the way down to probably, I didn't pay attention to how far it went, but probably all the way down to the northern edge of South America. And then you get to be too far south and the moon will be up on the other side of Mars. And so interesting geometry to think about there. But that's what we got on Monday. Moon's going to keep filling out and moving across this direction. The rest of this stuff will be available for you to observe all week. I hope you have a great week, everybody. I hope you have a chance to observe some of this stuff. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll have something new for you next week.